Hey guys, we just got to Solace.
Let's go check it out.
Come on.
I woke up at like 2 in the morning and just said, find your solace. And then Find Your Solace led to Solace Brewing Company, and I texted Drew like at 3 in the morning. I was like, dude, Solace Brewing Company, that's it.
Nice.
And yeah.
You know it when it's right.
So Adrian's graphic designer actually owns a graphic design company, and one of the guys that works for him was at Ocelot one night. We were all over there, and we ended up talking to him and just telling him about what we were doing. And he was like, hey, do you mind if I like just put some stuff together? And I was like, yeah, I don't care. Like, I'm not paying you to do it. And he was like, yeah, no, I just want to do it. And that was one of the first things he came up with.
That's awesome.
And we like fell in love with it. And he's been our graphic designer ever since. Started working at Beltway Brewing Company in Sterling, on the other side of Sterling.
That's by where we're from.
So I don't know if you know, they're a contract brewery. So all we did was make beer for other people. I ran the operations there for about 3 years. Met my one business partner Drew, who's over there giving the other tour right now. So he ran all of the production. I did all the back office operations. And one day we were drinking and said, why are we continuing to help other people make their beer when we can make our own beer? So we decided we wanted to open our own place. That was sometime in like 2015. I left Beltway in January of 2016. We broke ground here December of 2016, and then we were brewing by May 2017. So we're just under a year old.
Wow, because you're pretty well known for being that young.
Thanks. I think having the experience that we had at Beltway really helped. A lot of people already knew us, and we already knew a lot of people in the industry because we were brewing for them.
Right.
So we were brewing for like Crooked Run, Enjoy Theory, Lost Rhino. We did Dirt Farm. We did McDowell's when they were still brewing. So we brewed for a lot of local Loudon people. And then, I mean, just being in and around Loudoun County beer, I mean, we know everybody at all the other breweries. Yeah, so my now wife, when we were still dating, she got me my first homebrew kit for like my 22nd or 23rd birthday. So I just took it on as a hobby and just did it for years and years and years through my first career. And ultimately decided I wanted to hopefully own my own brewery one day.
I love it.
My friends do the home brewing thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch the Capitals game later tonight and drink their newest beer, but it's it's funny to go over there and watch them out in the driveway with the big pot and the butane going.
So that's how a lot of people in the industry started.
Yeah.
We have a 20-barrel brew house, so this is where everything starts here. It's what we call the hot side. We have our mash tun where we basically do our big cereal mash with our grain, our cracked grain, and it sits in there for about 45 minutes while it's converting those long chain sugars into simple sugars, your glucose, fructose, sucrose.
It's all chemistry.
Yeah, it's a lot of science. So then we move it over into this tank here, and at the bottom of this tank, it's like a big giant colander. So it allows all of that sugary water to separate from from that grain, and what that does is basically just leaves behind a bunch of spent grain, which we then put into these bins right here, and then a farmer comes and picks them up and feeds them to his cows.
Oh.
So we separate all that sugary water that we call wort, and we send it over to our boil kettle, where we boil it for a number of different reasons.
And that's that one?
That's this one right here, yep. So it boils for an hour, we add our hops, and then at the end of the process, we send it through this heat exchanger right here. Very, very hot wort going through at 212 degrees.
That's the blue thing.
That's the blue thing here. And then cold water going the opposite direction to cool it down to 60 degrees, like instantaneously. And then it goes through this hose right here, and it goes into one of the tanks over there, where the fermentation happens. So we pitch our yeast over in those tanks, and what the yeast do is they consume those simple sugars. That's their food, and the byproducts are ethanol and CO2. Very, very fancy. They basically pee out the ethanol and they fart the CO2. That's the scientific terminology.
I understand.
So
Like I said, so we transfer everything, the work comes over to here. The yeast do their thing, fermentation,
So
and then
hot
that's
yeast.
yeah. So then it becomes beer essentially. Once the yeast have consumed the sugars, there's alcohol in it, and it's now beer. So this is part of the fermentation process right here. This tank is getting close to the end, but you can see all that CO2 coming out.
Oh, that's
That's
just
straight
the CO2
CO2.
going into water.
Yeah, well, it's technically sanitizer, but yeah,
Oh, okay.
just in case there's ever a vacuum and it sucks it up. We don't want water in
Oh,
there,
I
but
see.
either way, if it's pulling a vacuum, it's a bad thing, and it would all be bad. So this is the tank that we're brewing into today. We'll put, our yeast in here. They'll do their thing for about 4 or 5 days, and then if it's an IPA, we'll dry hop it after we take all the yeast off. So we will add hops into here as well.
Again.
Yep.
And then from here, do you put it into just
So
kegs
from here,
or bottles?
yeah. So from here, once fermentation is done, we take all the yeast out, we take all those hops out, and then we cold condition it. So we take it down to about 32 degrees and leave it there for 4 to 5 days. What that does is gets all the yeast out of suspension, helps to clarify the beer, make it much more shelf stable, which means that the beer lasts longer.
So this machine does an awful lot.
A lot happens in here. Yeah.
It goes hot, cold.
Yep. So then from here we take it into this tank here. This is our bright beer tank. Bright beer, yeah. Bright beer just means that it's ready for packaging.
Okay.
So it's bright beer means that it's essentially either been filtered or ready for packaging. No, it goes from the bottom.
Oh,
So
okay.
everything comes from the bottom. The stuff up at the top, that is actually propylene glycol, which is essentially antifreeze. So each tank has two cones or two shells essentially, one on the inside, one on the outside, and in between the two, the glycol is allowed to run around and act as a heat exchange to keep it cool or to cool it down. That's what that blue stuff is. And then so we take it from the bottom, take it into here, and then we actually force carbonate everything here. So on the other end of this clamp right here is a ceramic rod that's about yay long and about yay wide, and it's totally porous. And essentially the way that you aerate a fish tank, essentially the same thing. So we put our food grade sterile CO2 right here, and then direct inject it directly into the beer, and it bubbles up and in, and then we get carbonated beer.
Does it have no carbonation
That's
until
really
it's
cool.
So we capture some CO2 at the end of fermentation, so we'll cap the tank
Right.
and let the yeast kind of naturally carbonate the beer a little bit, but not too much, not as much as we probably could, mainly because we do a lot of IPAs, and when you're dry hopping, you don't want any pressure, any CO2 on the tank.
Okay.
So there is some, and then after we dry hop and we cap it again, we actually put head pressure on the tank. When you're putting head pressure on the tank, automatically it's going to dissolve into the beer over time. So there is some natural carbonation that's happening.
But most of it
most
comes
of the carbonation happens here, yeah. So then we take a hose from the bottom and run it through this little manifold right here, which takes those 5 spider.
go into here?
Yep. Those 5 spider taps, yep, and we fill 5 kegs at a time.
Okay.
So we fill 5 kegs at a time here, put them on pallets, wrap them up, put them in our cold box. So we started doing these back in, I think, February was the first canning run we did, or maybe March.
And that's a whole other world.
Oh, totally, yeah. Everything completely different.
Oh, that's what they look like empty.
Yep. So basically what happens is it gets filled with the beer, and then the lid goes on top, and then it goes down this conveyor, and then it goes to a steamer, and it gets pushed up, and then the steamer rolls the lid down on top.
Wow.
Yep.
So can I just make an aside here? Small business owners in the United States, they risk money. They have so much legal stuff, especially food or drink.
Oh man, yeah.
I mean, there is so much on top of what you see and consume, and it's kudos to you because there's risk, there's work, work.
I'm sure you
and
have 40
so
hour
much,
weeks plus
so-
every week.
Yeah. So good job.